My stepmom tried to cut me from Dad's will while he was dying, but I had. My name is James Walker. I'm 32, and until 6 months ago, I thought family drama was something that only happened in movies or to other people. I was wrong. I lost my mum to cancer when I was just 8 years old. For almost a decade, it was just Dad and me against the world. He was everything: my father, my hero, my best friend, Richard Walker, respected investment banker by day, and Goofy Dad, who made dinosaur-shaped pancakes on Sunday mornings by night. When I was 17, Dad met Vanessa at some charity gala. She was 15 years younger than him, all glamorous with perfect blonde hair and the kind of smile that looked practiced in front of a mirror. I was heading to college soon, so I figured Dad deserved some happiness. When they got married a year later, I stood beside him at the altar, genuinely hoping it would work out. For the next decade or so, things were fine. Not great, not terrible. Vanessa was never the motherly type, but she made Dad happy, and that's what mattered. I finished college, started my own IT security business, and life moved on. I'd visit for holidays, make the obligatory small talk with Vanessa, and spend quality time with Dad. The arrangement worked. Then last November, everything changed. Dad called me on a Tuesday evening. "James, I need you to sit down for this," he said, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 months to a year." I moved back home the next day. Dad insisted I didn't need to, but there was no way I was leaving him to face this alone. My business partner covered for me, and I converted Dad's guest room into my temporary home. Vanessa didn't seem thrilled about the arrangement, but for once I didn't care what she thought. The first few weeks were a blur of doctor appointments, treatment options, and late-night conversations with Dad about everything and nothing. He was still strong then, still my dad, just a bit more tired, a bit more yellow around the eyes. Vanessa was strangely absent. She'd make appearances at important doctor appointments, standing perfectly poised in expensive outfits, holding Dad's hand for exactly as long as the doctor was speaking. Then she'd disappear for charity committee meetings or spa days for her mental health. It was during the 3rd week that I first noticed something odd. I was coming back from picking up Dad's prescriptions when I heard Vanessa's voice from his home office. The door was slightly ajar. "Richard, honey, you know James will be fine. He has his business. I'm the one who will need security after you're gone." I froze in the hallway. Dad's voice was weaker. "The will is already set up. James gets the house and half my investments. You get the beach property and the other half. It's fair, Vanessa." "But I'm your wife. 15 years I've given you. James is an adult with his own income. He doesn't need your money like I do." I should have walked in right then, should have confronted her, but something held me back, a chill that started at the base of my spine. Instead, I quietly backed away, put the pharmacy bag in the kitchen, and made a lot of noise coming back in the front door. "Dad, I'm back with your meds," I called out. By the time I reached his office, Vanessa was reapplying her lipstick in a compact mirror, and Dad looked exhausted. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, very wrong. The next morning, while Vanessa was at her yoga class and Dad was resting, I made a decision that would change everything. See, my company specializes in security systems, particularly discreet ones for corporate clients worried about intellectual property theft. I had some equipment in my car. It took me less than 20 minutes to install a small camera in Dad's office, hidden in the bookshelf between his law reference books that nobody ever touched. The camera would activate with motion and upload footage to my secure cloud server. I told myself it was just precautionary, that I was being paranoid. God, I wish I had been. For the next few weeks, I reviewed the footage regularly. Mostly it showed Dad working on his laptop, making phone calls, or Vanessa bringing him tea. Nothing suspicious. Dad's condition worsened. He started spending more time in bed than in his office. The hospice nurse began visiting daily. Then, about 6 weeks after Dad's diagnosis, it happened. I was at the pharmacy again. It seemed like I lived there now, when my phone pinged with a motion alert from the office camera. I opened the app, expecting to see Dad having a good moment, maybe catching up on emails. Instead, I saw Vanessa. She was sitting at Dad's desk, phone pressed to her ear. "Jeffrey, I don't care what you have to do. The new will needs to be ready by Friday." Her voice was different, harder, colder than I'd ever heard it. "No, Richard won't be coming to the office. You'll need to bring the papers here. He's too weak to verify anything properly, if you know what I mean." She laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "Once he signs, I want you to file it immediately. The son has been sniffing around, acting suspicious." My heart was pounding so hard, I had to sit down right there in the pharmacy waiting area. "Yes, the new terms are simple. Everything comes to me. James gets a small cash inheritance, let's say $10,000, enough to avoid any obvious contest of the will." She paused, listening. "Because he's dying of cancer, Jeffrey. By the time he signs these papers, he'll be on enough morphine to not even know what day it is. Just make it happen." She hung up and then did something that still haunts me. She smiled, not a sad smile, not a worried smile, a victorious smile. I must have sat there for 10 minutes, numb with shock, before the pharmacy tech called my name for Dad's prescription. That night, I reviewed more footage from previous days when I'd been out of the house. There was Vanessa going through Dad's desk drawers, photographing documents. Another clip showed her with a man I didn't recognize, presumably Jeffrey, whispering and pointing at various papers. The next morning, I made 2 calls, first to my business partner to bring me more equipment, second to Stanley Griffin, my father's lawyer for the past 30 years. "Stan, I need to meet with you today. It's about Dad's will, and no, I can't tell you over the phone." 4 hours later, I was sitting in Stan's wood-paneled office downtown. He looked exactly as he always had, silver-haired, bow-tied, with reading glasses perched on his nose. "James, my boy, how's your father doing?" "Not good, Stan. Weeks, not months now." He nodded sadly. "I'm so sorry. Richard is one of the finest men I've ever known." I took a deep breath. "That's why I'm here. I think Vanessa is trying to change his will." Stan's eyebrows shot up. "That would be highly irregular. I prepared Richard's most recent will just last year. He was very clear about his wishes." "She's bringing in someone named Jeffrey, her own lawyer, I think." Stan's face darkened. "Jeffrey Sloan?" "Ambulance chaser with an office by the marina." I nodded. "I have evidence, Stan. Video evidence." I pulled out my laptop and played several key clips. Stan's professional composure cracked as he watched Vanessa plotting, the unknown lawyer visiting, and most damning of all, footage from yesterday that showed Vanessa practicing Dad's signature on a blank piece of paper. When I closed the laptop, Stan looked like he'd aged 10 years. "This is extremely serious, James. If she files a fraudulent will..." "What can we do?" Stan thought for a moment. "The original will is secure in my office, but we need to protect your father from being coerced while he's vulnerable." We spent the next hour formulating a plan. Stan would, coincidentally, visit Dad tomorrow, casually ensuring the original will was still his wish. I would continue gathering evidence. When I got home, Dad was having a rare good day. He was sitting up in bed, watching an old Western movie. I sat with him, trying to act normal while my mind raced. "Something on your mind, kiddo?" he asked during a commercial break. Even dying, he could still read me like a book. I wanted to tell him everything, But what would that do except cause him pain in his final weeks? Make him realize the woman he'd spent 15 years with was just waiting for him to die so she could cash in? Just work stuff, Dad. Nothing important. He patted my hand. You're a terrible liar. Always have been. Is it Vanessa? I know you two never quite connected. I forced a smile. It's fine, Dad. Really? He gave me a long look. You know, James, I'm not completely oblivious. Vanessa married me for financial security. I knew that from the beginning. I stared at him, shocked. Don't look so surprised. He chuckled weakly. I wasn't born yesterday. She was beautiful. I was lonely. It was a transaction of sorts. But she did give me companionship for many years, and I'm grateful for that. Dad, if you know she's just after your money... He squeezed my hand. Don't worry about the will, son. Stanley has everything in order. I made sure of it. I wanted to believe him, but the footage didn't lie. Vanessa was planning something, and Dad was getting weaker every day. The next morning, Stan arrived as planned, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing his most official-looking suit. Richard, thought I'd stop by to check on my old friend. He boomed as he entered Dad's bedroom. Vanessa appeared instantly, like she had some sort of radar. Stanley, what a surprise, she said, voice dripping with false warmth. Richard isn't really up for visitors today. Nonsense, Dad said from his bed. Stan's family, not a visitor. Come in, old friend. I watched from the doorway as Stan masterfully maneuvered the conversation, eventually bringing up the will in the most natural way possible. Just wanted to confirm everything still as you wanted in the will, Richard. Peace of mind for me. You know how lawyers are. Dad's eyes flicked to Vanessa, then to me, then back to Stan. Everything's exactly as it should be. Stan. No changes needed. Vanessa's smile tightened. Actually, Richard and I were discussing some updates, weren't we, darling? Dad closed his eyes briefly. Whatever updates we discussed can wait, Vanessa. Stan nodded. Well, as long as you're happy with the current arrangement, the house and half the investments to James, the beach property, and the other half to Vanessa. I saw Vanessa's hands clench at her sides. Actually, Dad said, voice suddenly stronger, I've been thinking. James, could you give us a minute? I'd like to speak with Stan privately. My heart sank. Had Vanessa gotten to him after all? I left the room, but I didn't go far. The camera in Dad's office was still running, but I needed more. While Vanessa paced in the hallway, shooting daggers at me with her eyes, I slipped into my room and activated the recording app on my phone, then left it just outside Dad's bedroom door before walking away. 20 minutes later, Stan emerged, looking grim. He nodded slightly to me as he passed. Vanessa immediately went into Dad's room, closing the door behind her. I retrieved my phone and retreated to my room to listen. What I heard was Dad, sounding more lucid and forceful than he had in weeks, telling Stan that he wanted to make one change to his will. The beach house, which had been promised to Vanessa, would now go to me as well. Her share of the investments would remain untouched. She's been making calls, Stan, Dad's voice said on the recording. She thinks I'm too doped up to notice, but I hear her, making plans for after, talking about selling my house, the house where I raised James, where his mother's memories live. I can't let that happen. My throat tightened. Even now, Dad was protecting me, protecting Mom's memory. The next 2 days were tense. Vanessa was cold and distant, spending most of her time on the phone in hushed conversations I couldn't quite hear. The hospice nurse warned me that Dad was declining rapidly. His lucid moments were becoming fewer and farther between. Then on Friday, just as Vanessa had planned with Jeffrey, a man arrived at the house carrying a leather portfolio. I was ready. Can I help you? I asked, blocking the doorway. I'm here to see Mrs. Walker. I'm her attorney. Jeffrey Sloan, I presume. He looked surprised. Yes, and you are? James Walker, Richard's son. I believe you have some papers for my father to sign? Jeffrey shifted uncomfortably. This is a private legal matter between your father and stepmother. Nothing involving my dying father is private from me. Not anymore. Vanessa appeared behind me. James, stop making a scene. Jeffrey is here at your father's request. I turned to her, keeping my voice level. Strange. Dad didn't mention expecting a lawyer today. In fact, Stan Griffin was just here earlier this week, handling all of Dad's legal affairs. Jeffrey looked between us, clearly sensing something was wrong. Perhaps I should come back another time. No, Vanessa said sharply. Richard is expecting these papers. James, move aside. I stepped back, allowing them in, but as they headed toward Dad's bedroom, I spoke again. Before you go in there, you should know that everything happening in this house is being recorded. Every conversation, every document, for Dad's protection, of course. I wasn't actually recording everything, but the look of panic that flashed across Vanessa's face was worth the bluff. Jeffrey stopped walking. Mrs. Walker, you didn't mention any recording devices. There aren't any, she hissed. He's lying. I pulled out my phone and played a clip from my office camera, the one of her practicing Dad's signature. The color drained from Jeffrey's face. I think I should go. Jeffrey, Vanessa grabbed his arm. We had an agreement. I'm not going to prison for fraud, Vanessa. Find another lawyer. He pulled away from her and practically ran out the front door. Vanessa turned on me, her perfect facade cracking completely. You little snake, you've been spying on me. Protecting my father, I corrected, and it's a good thing I did. You have no idea what I've put up with for 15 years, she spat. Caring for a man old enough to be my father, playing the devoted wife while he bored me to tears with his stories and his stupid coin collection. Each word was like a slap. This was the real Vanessa, finally unmasked. He gave you everything, I said quietly. A beautiful home, financial security, love. Love, she laughed bitterly. Your father didn't love me. He loved the idea of me. The pretty young wife who made him feel less lonely after your mother died. It was a business arrangement from day one. Then you got exactly what you signed up for. Half his investments is more than generous. Her eyes narrowed. It's not enough. Do you know how many of my friends married rich old men and got everything when they died? Everything. Not some insulting half-share with the leftover son. I stepped closer to her, lowering my voice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to your yoga class or your spa day, or wherever you actually go when you're supposedly caring for my father. I'm going to sit with Dad and make sure he's comfortable. And if you try anything like this again, the recordings go to the police. Elder abuse is a serious crime, Vanessa. For a moment, I thought she might slap me. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. I sank onto the stairs, shaking with adrenaline. Then I heard Dad's weak voice calling me. I found him propped up in bed, looking exhausted but clear-eyed. I heard shouting, he said. I sat beside him, taking his frail hand. Just a disagreement with Vanessa. Nothing for you to worry about. He smiled faintly. I told you Stanley had everything in order. You did, Dad. You were right. He squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, son. Sorry you had to deal with all this while I'm... He gestured vaguely at his failing body. Don't apologize. Not ever. We sat in silence for a while, just being together. Then he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Your mother would be proud of you, James. So proud. Dad passed away 3 weeks later, peaceful, with me holding his hand. Vanessa was there too, playing the grieving widow perfectly for the hospice nurse. But as soon as the funeral home took his body, she packed a suitcase and left, saying she needed space to grieve. The will reading was scheduled for the following Monday at Stan's office. I arrived early, heart pounding. Despite everything, I was worried Vanessa might have found another way to manipulate the situation. Stan greeted me with a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "Everything's in order, James. Your father made sure of it." Vanessa arrived exactly on time, dressed in an appropriately somber black dress, eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. She didn't acknowledge me as she took a seat across the table. Stan cleared his throat and began the formal reading. The standard legal preamble, the small personal bequests to a few old friends. Then he reached the main assets. "To my son, James Richard Walker, I leave our family home on Maple Street, my entire investment portfolio, and the beach house in Seagrove." I heard Vanessa's sharp intake of breath, but kept my eyes forward. "To my wife, Vanessa Claire Walker," Stan continued, "I leave the sum of $5,000 and the Louis Vuitton suitcase she admired on our trip to Paris, as it appears she has been planning to travel after my death." The sunglasses came off. Vanessa's eyes were wide with shock and fury. "This is wrong," she said, voice shaking. "The will was different. I was supposed to get half the investments and the beach house. This is a mistake." Stan looked at her calmly. "This is the only legal will on file for Richard Walker, signed and notarized 3 weeks before his death, with 2 witnesses present, including myself." "He was on morphine!" "He wasn't competent." Her voice rose hysterically. "Actually," Stan said, sliding a document across the table, "I had Richard evaluated by a psychiatrist the day he made these changes. He was deemed fully competent to make legal decisions." Vanessa turned to me, her beautiful face contorted with rage. "You did this. You turned him against me." I met her gaze steadily. "You did that all by yourself, Vanessa." "I'll contest it," she threatened. "I'll take this to court." Stan cleared his throat again. "Mrs. Walker, I would strongly advise against that course of action. Should this go to court, certain evidence might come to light that could result in criminal charges against you." He slid a USB drive across the table. "Your attempts to defraud a dying man are well documented." James was quite thorough. Vanessa stared at the drive, then at me, then back at Stan. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and the Louis Vuitton suitcase Richard had indeed left her, and walked out. I never saw her again. It's been 6 months since Dad died. I'm living in the family home on Maple Street, surrounded by memories of both my parents. I've donated most of Dad's clothes and personal items, but kept his coin collection, the one Vanessa thought was stupid. Turns out some of those coins were quite valuable. Dad knew what he was doing, right to the end. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about how things turned out with Vanessa. Dad did choose to marry her, after all. But then I remember her practicing his signature, planning to sell our family home, calling me the leftover son, and the guilt evaporates. The hidden camera that started it all is still in the bookshelf in Dad's, now my, office. I keep it as a reminder that sometimes the truth needs a little help coming to light. And sometimes justice looks like a Louis Vuitton suitcase and a one-way ticket to nowhere.